Liberal Democrat spokesperson Luke Taylor.
Thank you very much, Mr Weston. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairship. And I start by thanking the honourable member for Kensington and Bayswater for bringing this debate. London is not where I was born, but it was where, like so many others who come to our great city, the rest of our lives begin. As a wide-eyed, bushy-tailed teenager arriving to study at Imperial College, as mentioned already, in the early 2000s, I felt the visceral sensation of my life changing. London is and always has been a melting pot, a smorgasbord, a tapestry, and every other cliché you can find to describe the world's greatest city, as I'm sure all of us in this chamber can agree. That's why it is the honour of my life to be the Liberal Democrats' frontbench spokesperson for this city that I love so dearly. As I sat in St Paul's Cathedral earlier this week at the commemoration of the 7/7 attacks, I reflected on what it is that makes London so special. Everyday heroes, ordinary working people, facing unbelievable challenges in a city that stands astride hemispheres and cultures, who get up every day and carry on. It's often tempting to separate economic progress from cultural pride, but I think them one and the same. It is the hard work and energy of Londoners that makes this city contribute so much to the nation's economy and society. And yet they face immense challenges. Some of the highest rates of child poverty in the nation, crumbling hospitals, crimes that destroy lives and livelihoods like knife crime and tool theft, profound infrastructure problems that hold back growth and cut off opportunities, not least for the disabled or disadvantaged. And lingering environmental problems too, with pollution thick above some of our major roads and dents in our great river. So I cannot pass up this opportunity to ask the government not to leave London behind or continue simply to tack to the record of the last Conservative government in failing to take steps to keep London a world city and a livable one too. I fear that they are veering dangerously close to that path. So let me, Mr Chair, start by talking about that misguided tax policy, because if you're looking for a way to actively stymie London's innovation and business environment, which is already dealing with global shocks and Trump's tariffs, the employer's Nix hike would be right up there. If Britain is an island of shopkeepers, then London is its longest high street. Our economic activity is more than a quarter of the nation's annual GDP. Were it simply the case that this growth was generated just at the hands of a few financial institutions in a glass tower above the city, this would be less impressive. But it is the enterprising small businesses, the family-run restaurants, the punch above their weight, and the world-leading research institutions, big and small, that London's real economic powerhouse sits. And it's London's care workers, bus drivers, street cleaners, who keep our city livable for ordinary people, despite the rising cost of housing. They are the fuel that keeps the engine going. So to hammer them with what is turning out to be in practice a jobs tax is totally misguided. The OBR has shown that the £25 billion a year this hike is supposed to raise was far too optimistic. The figure seems to be much closer to £10 billion a year. And that figure could be much more readily and more justly raised by reversing Conservative tax cuts for big banks, or increasing the digital services tax on the largest multinationals, or remote gaming duty for online gambling firms, or reforming capital gains tax to make sure the super-rich pay their fair share rather than hard-working ordinary Londoners hit by capital gains tax because of the ballooning housing market, or funding HMRC to collect the tax that's owed and currently dodged by companies and individuals wealthy enough to afford the best advice. Governing is about choices, and the government has made absolutely the wrong choice for Londoners and the whole country with this Nix hike. I would appreciate if the Minister could outline whether or not a review of the policy, or at least exemptions, will be considered at the autumn budget. The government have also chosen not to seriously grip the mantle of the reform that would turbocharge growth most of all, fixing the Conservatives' botched Brexit deal that has left London languishing outside of the European market in so many meaningful ways. It is good that they have become some of the work of normalising our relationship with our biggest neighbour and trading partner. But they won't budge on the most critical issue of all, a new customs union with the EU that would boost growth and, by extension, tax receipts. Nobody wants to return to the Brexit wars of the last decade, But the government would do well to remember that nobody voted to make themselves poorer on that day in June 2016. Londoners, the British people, Remainers, Leavers, nobody wanted to be worse off, and we were all promised, by both sides, we would not be. There is a significant opportunity to right this wrong as we normalise our relationship, and the government just isn't taking it. In much the same way, the government is failing to invest in the infrastructure that London needs to deliver its share of the growth that Britain needs. Whilst we welcome the 10-year infrastructure plan, many of us noted that in the spending review there was no commitment to the capital funding needed for the Bakerloo line extension. As my honourable friend, the member for Richmond Park, has so vividly explained, Hammersmith Bridge, such a vital artery, not just in her constituency but across West London, remains shut with no commitment to a proper funding agreement to get it permanently reopened. And parts of Outer London, like my own in Sutton, remain in effect cut off from the TfL network, either because of poorly performing bus and national rail services or the complete absence of tram or tube infrastructure in the borough. And to be absolutely correct there, we have half a tram stop, but we tend not to count that in Sutton. London is not just Soho and Chelsea. It is places like Sutton, Hillingdon, Hornchurch and Enfield, proud boroughs with combined populations of millions that must play their part in growing the pie, and who need commuter transport investment to do that. And where infrastructure projects do happen, they seem to either be delivered at great delay and overspend, like the new Piccadilly line trains, or unimaginative white elephants, like Mayor Khan's Silvertown Tunnel. The new 4-year deal for TfL outlined in the spending plan presents a chance to change this. So I invite the Minister to outline if they will now look at finally delivering progress on reopening Hammersmith Bridge, the Bakerloo line extension and the DLR extension to Thamesmead. This is all just not good enough, and many Londoners are left asking themselves, why does London's contribution to the nation not mean its voice is heard? Compared with its peers around the world, London does not have anything like the appropriate devolved powers. In the patchwork of devolution that's been woven in this country this century, London's settlement is looking increasingly threadbare and outdated. The GLA has nowhere near enough power to shape the Mayor's agenda and hold them to account. The Mayor's powers are themselves too limited. Not enough money raised in the city can be spent in the city. And local councils, the bedrock of London's governance, are ignored, prevented from working strategically across the city and powerless to stop year after year of funding cuts. How else can we explain the actions of a government that is pushing ahead with a new funding settlement that could leave some councils losing 70% of their spending power? This is particularly foolish at a time when councils are doing great work to boost London's growth. With superb research and development schemes like the London Cancer Hub in my own borough of Sutton, which could create thousands of new jobs locally. Perhaps the most pertinent question is, who really speaks for London? It certainly isn't Sadiq Khan, who promised us that with the winds of a Labour government at our backs, he would be able to deliver for Londoners. And on the day of the spending review, made himself completely unavailable for media comment. Where was the voice that London needed on that day? Hear, hear. He is evidently not as effective, and this government not as receptive, as we were led to believe. As a result, I fear Londoners are being sidelined across the industrial strategy and fiscal policy. Why, for instance, is London excluded from the new £150 million Creative Place Growth Fund or the British Business Bank's New Nations and Regions Investment Fund? And why haven't government listened to calls not just from the Liberal Democrats but from the private sector to replace the apprenticeship levy with a skills and training levy properly integrated with devolved powers over skills to give businesses the flexibility that they need? Or even listen to our calls for lifelong skills grants? I hope the Minister can explain on those. In conclusion, we must level up all parts of Britain. There are regional imbalances in this country that are totally unjust, and I know that more than most. I came here from rural Lincolnshire. But there is no path to growing Britain without a strong, dynamic, self-governing London. And as I stand here, having recounted so many challenges London faces in continuing to contribute to the nation's economy, I wonder again in frustration why my role of Shadow London spokesperson, I am not able to shadow a Minister for London. I mean no slight on the Minister who joins us here today. There has been one on and off for 30 years, and this government's decision not to appoint one is a gross oversight for all the reasons brought up in this place today. Londoners need a voice. Yes.
It's actually not unusual when you have a Labour government and a Labour mayor, like when you had a Tory government and a Tory mayor, that there isn't a Minister for London. And also, just to catch up on what you said in regards to our Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, he's been the biggest business mayor that London has seen. He's been an advocate for London way better than any Tory or previous mayors previously. So I think it's a little bit unjust to refer to him the way you did.
I thank the honourable member for her intervention. She gives a stirring defence of the London mayor. I think the point we're trying to make is that there is no holistic view of London's priorities across government. My next sentence was to go on to say that Londoners need a voice inside the government. Our interest ought not to be divided out across departments and responsibilities, but coordinated and addressed holistically. And I think that's the point we're making regarding a Minister for London. It's able to coordinate departments, coordinate responses, and in that regard, there needs to be a conflict with the Mayor of London. Somebody fighting for London, fighting against the government, whether it's a Labour government, a Conservative government, or, heaven forbid, a Liberal Democrat government. You need that conflict, you need that challenge, you need that alternative view, because their goals often don't align perfectly. There has to be that champion, and I don't believe today the voice of the Mayor is loud enough or clear enough in that regard. And I take your points in the positive sense that they were intended, I'm sure. So, to close, we deserve the attention, we deserve the investment, and we deserve the confidence of greater devolution, even more powers for the Mayor to do as he sees fit, as the London regions, as the London councils should direct. We need to keep on doing our bit to drive the economic value and contribute to our great country. Thank you.
Hear, hear.